Not today, not today, not today, not tomorrow. Get out my way, please, I'm trying to get paid. Not today, not today.
Welcome in to week 6 of the NFL. Ooh, man, time is flying by, Steve. Before we kick anything off, I want to remind everybody, please like and subscribe this video. It helps us tremendously, helps us get all of the info that helps you be better bettors to you as soon as we put things up. So remember, like and subscribe. It helps the channel tremendously. Steve, we're in week 6. Time is flying by. Tell me how you're feeling. You sucking it in? Are you like getting rejuvenated by the NFL every Sunday?
Yeah. Slowly but surely, but I feel like you blink and you miss it. I feel like we're getting spread so thin between Monday and Thursday and 6:30 a.m. Pacific time games on the West Coast. But I love it. I love it. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. I don't want to see it go.
Yeah, I know. We just gotta enjoy it while we're in it. And I think I don't know exact numbers, but we're in like the midst of like a crazy just football extravaganza. I think it's like something like the next 40 days there's football every single day or something. So I mean, you can chuck all the other days in the week into that because it's just nonstop football. And we're also betting college now. So I mean, it is nonstop, no doubt about it. All right. Well, we just survived week 5, and I think we might as well go ahead and just jump right in and talk about the matchup map and NFL efficiency landscape, kind of teams that are jumping off the page to us on offense, defense, and kind of break some of these teams down. One question I want to ask you right away, Steve, is man, oh man, this was one of the most hyped games going in. It was a Sunday night matchup. We had Dallas. This was at San Francisco, or was this at Dallas? This was at San Francisco.
This was right? In San Francisco. Yep, in Santa Clara.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we had Dallas go into San Francisco, and boy, oh boy, was that just a very, very, very disappointing show out for the Dallas Cowboys. Or another way of saying this was really, really impressive for the 49ers. Give me your thoughts in that game. Break that down for me. What are you taking away from both of these teams?
Yeah, I think let's start with the obvious. San Francisco is the real deal. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. I think we all knew that going into this matchup. And boy, oh boy, did they prove it in all phases of the game. Dallas. We always talk about the joke about Dallas is, every year, Dallas Cowboys fans saying, this is our year. We're going to go to the Super Bowl. We're going to win it all. They start off really good. They look really good, and they choke through the playoffs. We are at that point of they're going to start choking. This is a playoff team, and we saw that. And for me, I have two major concerns. One is obviously we lost Diggs on the defensive side. What's going to be of that defense? They're supposed to be really elite, and by all means, they're still good. But now we're starting to see what can they do against a really potent offense. But then two, we've been talking about it all year. Is Dak Prescott the answer? And I have been since day one saying no. Listen, he's going to put up points. He's going to throw the ball. It's going to get yards. But when it comes clutch time, he is not careful with the ball. And we saw that pick after pick on that Monday night game. So, I think Cowboys here, we're seeing their ceiling. I'm not saying this is the end. They're going to go winless the rest of the season. They're going to bounce back. They're going to win good games. But this is not a Super Bowl team, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think everything you said there is right on. I would say, though, you said, is this defense good? This defense is good, okay? They beat the shit out of multiple teams. I think the way my angle is, or at least my opinion here, is that I think that speaks more about how good San Francisco's offense is. I think they did go up against a really good defense, and I think we're going to see it round 2 this week, going up against the Browns, which by all means, by all metrics, is the number 1 defense actually. So I think they're going to be tested twice here. But I agree. But I don't think you can get rid of Dak. The cap situation, the money situation is basically horrible. I mean, I think they have to pay him something like $60 million in dead cap and pay him that money if they trade him or cut him. So I think they're kind of in bed with Dak. On the other side, though, what are you taking away from Purdy? We hear a lot system quarterback. We hear, but if he was in a different offense, he wouldn't be that good. But what are your thoughts here? I mean, the guy's kind of only won, and he's only done it in a dominant fashion.
Yeah, what more do you want him to do? And we'll kind of talk about the Brock Purdy situation and how unique that is with our model. coming up in a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this, for all intents and purposes, this dude is the real deal. Yes, would he be the same on a Bears team or a Giants team? No, no. Who gives a shit? He's on San Francisco's team. This is a well-oiled machine, and he is the perfect fit for that. And boy, they look good. I don't know what more he can do to prove that he is that dude. Is that a hot take?
No, I don't think that's a hot take. I mean, whether he's a system quarterback or not is irrelevant. Why? Because he's in that system. So it doesn't matter. If he is, God bless him, because he's in that system. So I don't think that argument makes a lot of sense. And I don't really get why people kind of use that. Because it's not like he got traded. And the question is, will he be good at the next team? It's just, is he going to continue to be good at the team he's been really good at? And I think the answer is probably, because there's not a whole reason to believe it would change. I mean, Shanahan's got that offense oiled up and he knows how to run it apparently. So I think we're high on Purdy and yeah, we'll talk a little bit about the analytics aspect of this. Another kind of team I want to talk about on the other end of the spectrum, actually two teams. But let's first start with New England. Man, this is a team, we're on the record saying we didn't actually bet any of their futures, but we're saying, hey, don't be surprised if this offense clicks fast and kind of gets up to speed quickly because of the Bill O'Brien situation. And we thought a lot of continuity or synergies on the offense, but man, oh man, was I wrong. I mean, this is literally back to back. This is the 1 and 2 worst losses for Bill Belichick in his career. It literally can't get worse, or I guess it can get worse, but it hasn't been worse. So I talk me through that. I mean, what did we miss there with New England?
The downfall of Mac Jones. I mean, New England's always made its living on having a really, really elite defense. And I don't want to call them bargain value receivers, but not necessarily name brand, right? At least not when they're there, either past their prime or really early before they kind of take off. But, you look here now, I mean, this is back-to-back weeks they've given up more than 30 points and been beaten by more than 30 points, right? Like, as you mentioned about his worst losses in his career. And for the second time this season, Mac Jones has been benched, and you got to think it's going to be permanent this time, man. Now, Bill plays everything close to the vest, but you got to believe it's going to be Zappy's time to shine, because this team, this offense particularly, is not looking great. And there's only so much you can do on a defense when you're on the field for 40 minutes a game.
Yeah. So, I mean, so Bill said this week, we're not making a change. So when do you think they're going to pull that ripcord? When do you think they eject Matt Jones?
This week.
Mac Jones?
No, this week. This is classic Bill Belichick, look away. No.
Nothing
if
to
they're
see
a prop bet, yeah, there's a prop bet or a passing yards bet for
guaranteed.
Zappy, I'm taking it.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, not that he's going to do well, but just like there's
that he's going to play.
Bet of, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like a pass attempted. I'm sure that market exists somewhere. Okay, that you heard it here first. So out with the old, in with the new, I guess. Zappy was a sexy toy a little bit last season, and we saw that happen in the Chicago Bears game. So I guess we may have seen this before. Interesting take. We'll have to keep an eye out there. All right, headed to New York. Our model was all over that game. It was, I don't want to say it was an easy cover. They almost tried to backdoor us there, but I mean, when you look at a time of possession, that's what everyone's talking about here. But I think I heard Michael Lombardi say it the best, and right, why we use adjusted metrics like expected points added. What do you do with the ball when you have it? It isn't only about having the ball. It's what do you do with it? Sure, you can hold on to it for 2/3 of the game, but if you don't actually have any success whatsoever, or you have any efficiency, it doesn't really matter, right? So we saw Miami held the ball 1/3 of this game, but outscored them like crazy. And if we look on the efficiency landscape, it's not that crazy to see why. I mean, the Finns are chugging right along, and New England or the Giants are kind of taking a step back. Is this a team going into auto fade for you, like where you're just like, there's no way they can win, there's no way they can cover?
It's got to be. It's got to be. They're getting dangerously close. We've just seen this anemic offense too often. Now, you take away one half of football against Arizona, right? A spectacular comeback. Other than that, what do you have? Right, especially when you play above average competition, I'm concerned. Daniel Jones clearly is not the answer. Barkley's it's out, right? So what's left here. Waller hasn't really produced. And again, you can tie some of that to Jones, but what's there to be afraid of if you're an opposing defense that isn't the Arizona Cardinals?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this is starting to get into creepy territory, no doubt. 15 is what this opened up this week against the Bills, and that without a model telling me it's a good pick, I'm not going to be,
Sure.
laying the 15 or taking the 15 to be frank. It's just to stay away. I think for me, I don't necessarily put them in auto fade, but I definitely put them in auto. Just like there's no point to bet on them, whether I'm getting points, laying. Just stay away. I don't know what I'm going to get. I don't know what we have. It looks dysfunctional. It looks like there's injuries. There's just a number of things. All right. A couple more teams I want to talk about. Ravens. We have a Super Bowl ticket for them, but they just keep, like, in some ways they're over exceeding expectations. If they would have won against the Steelers on Sunday, they would have swept all of their home games away in their division, but they ended up just fumbling that ball away fumbling that game away quite literally. And they had every chance to win that game and, quite frankly, cover that game. And we just see Lamar in these crucial situations. He's done it with this game, and then he did it against the Colts, where he makes a turnover in maybe the worst part of the game. What's going on with the Ravens? Should we be afraid? Should we be selling our tickets?
Yeah, I don't think it's quite time for me to panic on the Ravens. They came through early in the season with some injuries. They're kind of getting over that. But this was a game I got to look at their receiving core and saying, hey, guys, we got to get it together. Yes, Lamar had that very costly turnover at the end of the game that really their last chance was dashed. But before that, you had Bateman and Flowers just dropping critical pass after critical pass. I mean, what more can you do when a quarterback lays it on you? You've got two hands on the ball, and Zay Flowers had a ball literally hit him in the chest, and he just dropped it wide open. You can't have that in the NFL. The teams are too good to come back from that consistently. So, this is a game that the Steelers defense really wanted for them until their offense kind of got some momentum. So I look at that. I chalk this up as that's a bad receiving core game. Throw it away, put it in the back of your mind, and move forward with it. But, definitely something to kind of look onto, because this was the year. Everyone always said Lamar has no help. Lamar has no help. Lamar has help. They had a bad game, but Lamar has help now. And so if he can't put it together, I don't think you have any more excuses.
Well, and that pick that he threw was literally OBJ. He was throwing to OBJ. So it's like, it's hard to find excuses here. Okay, one other team or a couple other teams I want to talk about, the Lions here. The Lions are the real deal. Like, they looked really, really, really good. Now, I know they played a bad Carolina team, but they looked good. Teams that beat the shit out of bad teams is also a data point, right? In my opinion. And by the way, down Gibbs, down Amon-Ra. Like, this offense may only get better from there.
Yeah. It's hard for me to say. It's tough for me because the NFC North is just a complete mess right now. And so, are they the best team in the North? Yeah, I feel pretty confident saying that. How are they going to stack up, against some of these other elite teams? I'm still not quite convinced of where they land in terms of top four in the NFC, but this is a team I'm keeping my eye out on. It's a team that they can put points up against any team in the league. Their defense, as you can see in the quadrant of good offense, good defense, that was their Achilles heel last year. So I'm definitely high on Detroit, but I'm not quite ready to crown them elite just yet, personally.
Yeah, and it's tough to look away. I mean, I think right now it's clear, in my opinion, that San Francisco is just the clear NFC, and the Eagles haven't really put the gas on. Against Tampa Bay, they weirdly were able to, but then they struggled against Washington, which was really weird because then they go and I don't want to say dominate LA, but they easily cover. It's just a team that's really interesting. Yeah. So I don't know. The Lions can make some noise, especially like you said, if that defense continues to improve. Speaking of defenses, Kansas City winning games via defense is got to be something that we need to talk about more. This is not how Kansas City has won their games. They have won their games being a Miami, where they are super efficient offensively and they just outscore you and they just get enough done on defense to not screw it up. That's really the Kansas City way for the last 2-3 seasons. This is a whole new team where they're actually not that crazy efficient on offense. Now, yes, they're still in the quadrant of elite, but if you look at some other statistics like success rate, echo rate, like this team is actually kind of struggling on a per play basis or a per drive basis. So I like that's so interesting to me. I mean, did you see this coming? I did not see. We all saw Kansas City will probably be a good team, but it was going to be through their defense.
No, not a chance. Not a chance in hell. I thought, you have the obviously Tyreek has been gone, right? You have going to camp. Sky Moore's number one option. Will this whole Kadarius Toney thing work out? It seemed like it's really not. And then the whole Travis Kelce injury scare earlier in the year. I saw Kansas City has taken a huge step back. And let's not forget Bieniemy's out too, calling a play. So
yeah,
for them to be as good as they are offensively, I think is a win. And you can make that argument, but defensively, no. This is a team I thought was going to have a middle of the road defense because that's what they always do, and they eke it out on the offensive end. So I'm surprised.
Yeah, and I was trying to see on defense where are they at? So bad
pass offense, good rush.
Yeah.
Or sorry, bad rush and sorry, I'll let you talk.
Oh yeah, no. So yeah, this is really interesting. So this is saying that they're really good against the pass, but they're a little susceptible against the run. And I guess if you're going to be in the trade-off quadrant, I think that's where you want to be. So that's interesting. And then this offense it's Patrick Mahomes led here for the offense, but then they're running the ball kind of pretty much, we'll call it close to average. So really the running game is where they're kind of taking a hit on efficiency. Yeah, interesting team. I'd still, obviously they're going to be a good contender and interested to see how they kind of progress, but how they winning games right now is interesting to me. Couple other teams. LA is just kind of doing the thing that as I reflect back, why would I think they wouldn't be doing this? Matt Stafford has always been a good quarterback, whether he was in Detroit or whether he was been in LA when he wasn't injured. This guy, he wins games and he covers. So I did we get to like why weren't we higher on them? Now I don't think they'll win the Super Bowl or anything crazy like that, but like this is the team that only lost by one touchdown to San Francisco. I mean, Dallas couldn't even say that, right? Which is a pretty big deal. So that team is a team that is weirdly probably in my opinion where they should be, but we forgot that they should be there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it was kind of easy, and I was definitely one of the ones who was on this team of, Rams are not going to be good this year. It's easy to kind of get caught up in all the injuries and lost weapons on both sides of the ball, especially offensively, right? I mean, you talk about Stafford and Kupp being gone, like what are you left with, right?
Yeah.
But the emergence of Puka Nacua and Tutu Atwell, and now you've got Cooper Kupp back. I mean, this team just looks to be firing on all cylinders, and you throw Matt Stafford in there who can do what he does. This is going to be a good team. Now, is that hip thing something to worry about? Was that kind of a one-time little injury? Can he shake that off? Remains to be seen. But when he's healthy, this team is definitely dangerous. I was scared for that 49ers game. So I think we had 8.5 or 8 for that game.
7.5. We had 7.5.
Yeah,
keep the field goal to make it. It was won by 7.
Yeah,
or they lost by 7.
Yeah, I was like, I went into that week thinking there's no way, but that's what the Rams do. They're a really good offensive team, and they're proving it.
Yeah, no doubt. Let's talk a little bit about the Bengals. This was a team that has started really slow. This is this Joe Burrow way. Like you doubt Joe Burrow long enough, man, oh man, are you going to eat your words? And it just so happened to come in week 5, and or what week 4. We're going into week 5. I get so confused. We're going into week 6, right?
Into week 6. Yeah.
So through week 5 against Arizona, I mean, both him and Chase came alive. Man, I mean, so look, I want to get your thoughts. Like, is this a fluke? Is this just going to be a little bit of a blip and they're actually going to kind of regress, or is this the switch?
Yeah, I'm going to reverse you on this because this is the question I was going to ask you. Okay. What I want, because we look into this and we talk about how bad the Bengals have been, and you say, okay, well, is that because Burrow in this calf injury and he's just playing through injury, and that's why they're not doing well? Well, if this is what Burrow looks like healthy, I mean, he was running the ball all throughout that game yesterday. So he's scrambling here and there. So if this is a healthy Burrow, that team definitely looks like someone who should be feared. But again, I ask you, do you think this is a fluke against a poor Cardinals defense, or is Cincy back?
Yeah, no, I learned a long time ago. You will go broke betting against Joe Burrow. Period. Point blank. The guy just wins. We even have a variable in our model that literally like who is the quarterback and what do we measure? That is highly statistically significant. And I think Joe Burrow is one of the, probably prime examples. Like you can take a team's statistics and you don't have him as the quarterback, and it says, okay, this team's going to lose a lot. And then you throw him in there based off all the winning he's done. And it goes, oh, wow, this is actually, it'll bump a bad team to an average team. It'll take an average team to a good team. And I think that's what Joe Burrow is capable of. And I think if he can get himself out of this injury and healthy, like truly healthy, I won't be surprised if this team takes off. Now, the question really is, how did they lose too much? Because that AFC is just such a gauntlet. The Ravens are, good. The Browns, if they can get it together, could be good. I mean, so it's not a shoe-in that them flipping that switch actually leads them to be able to make the playoffs. It may be a little bit too little too late, but it's a one game at a time kind of thing. And but I that's my thesis when it comes to Joe Burrow. If you bet against Joe Burrow, you are going to go broke. So maybe you can do it once or twice. Maybe you can, get a game, what we're in 5 weeks. So you were able to win 4 games. But then, okay, you lost one and then do you lose the next one and the next one, to me, that's the kind of quarterback he is. He just wins games. And so I think a healthy Joe Burrow will convert that. The last game or last team I want to talk about is the Miami Dolphins. That is, we have 3 futures: Ravens, San Francisco, and Miami. And man, I can't say I mean, I'll pat ourselves on the back. 2 years ago, we had LA. Last year, we had Philly. This year, we have 3 of, I think, the top 3 teams. Maybe you could say for sure the top 2 teams in San Francisco and Miami. Maybe you put Ravens in the top 10, maybe top 5. But how are you feeling about that Miami team? Obviously, we talked about time of possession, but the little time that they did have the possession, this is one really offensively efficient team.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there are no words good enough to explain that. I mean, we always talk about speed kills, and you look across this roster. I mean, they are just absolutely destroying the competition. Looks like Achane got hurt. We'll see, what it looks like for him going forward. But I don't want to say like it doesn't matter. But who was Devin? We were calling him Devin Achane when the year started, right? So clearly he wasn't expected to be a difference maker, and that offense was already ho humming. And I expect more of the same. And I don't know what you're going to do. I haven't looked this up, but I would be curious to see how close the Dolphins get to the NFL's season, offensive points record. Because this is a team that just look, now clearly 70 points against Denver helps their case. Sure. But this is a team that you can realistically put up 4 touchdowns every game.
Yeah. And I think they have beat the record through 5 weeks. And McDaniels was asked about that. And he's like, yeah, that was our goal all along. Beat the 5-week record. And like that, okay, job is done. So yeah, I mean, to your point, we'll see. I don't remember their schedule off the top of my head. But obviously being in the AFC, it's going to get difficult, or it's going to stay difficult. It'll be interesting to see if the Jets kind of stay where they're at, New England stays where they're at. It's really just going to be them in Buffalo in that division. It'll be really interesting. All right, Steve, we're going to leave the matchup map. Any other teams we didn't talk about that you wanted to hit on?
Just one. We're going to talk about them in a little bit, so we're good to move on.
Okay. All right. As always, we have the offensive pass and rush. This is available on the website. I think this is a really great tool for the fantasy players out there. We do get a fair amount of fantasy questions. That's not really our expertise, but these 2 graphs right here will really help you break down where a team's weak, where a team's strong, where would a team kind of focus on a matchup. If a team's really bad at the run, you're going to probably expect the game plan to probably try to exploit that, or vice versa against the pass. And you can see where teams are really strong, right? Are they're good against the run, or they're good on the run? Are they good with the pass? You can kind of understand those things a little bit more. So highly recommend using these as tools to help not only with fantasy, but then betting as well. We've talked about the pass funnel. It looks like this week, the pass funnel that's kind of shaping up is Falcons, Jags they're probably teetering on they're actually becoming good against the pass, so maybe you don't want to actually go against them or bet against those bet on those receivers. Seattle and Jets. I would say those 3 teams. So Atlanta, Seattle, Jets, those are teams you would want to target for matchups for betting on the wide receivers that are going up against these DBs as potential overs for props. All right, quarterback landscape. I think it's worth stopping here and talking a little bit about it because some things are kind of starting to take shape. And hey, there's some familiar faces and some familiar quadrants. The one I want to start with, though, is Brock Purdy, man. We talked about it at the beginning. He's a system quarterback. He's not a system quarterback. I will stand by this. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he's a system quarterback. Who cares? He's in the system, and he's not going to go anywhere. And the only injury is going to slow him down. There's nothing I have to imagine at this point that someone can do that is going to make Brock Purdy just become night and day difference. I'm not saying you can't slow the 49ers. I'm not saying they're the best team ever. They're inevitably going to win the Super Bowl. I'm just saying from a per play efficiency standpoint, we're getting a pretty big sample size of Brock Purdy plays. And guess what? He's really good at all those plays. Steve, is that crazy?
No, listen, Brock Purdy is him. He is him. I don't know what more you can ask for, what more you want out of the man other than what he's doing. He's literally the closest thing to EPA per play perfection that exists in the NFL. Right?
Yep.
Like, so, this guy just doesn't know how to lose. And I think that this just speaks wonders about who he is and how he's been operating that offense. So, yeah, I think that's great. Now, on the other hand, I want to ask you a question, shifting gears, if that's okay with you. Speaking of quarterbacks who we're asking, are they really where they are on the map? We go back to Tua. Last year, at least for me, last year, Tua's always lived in this quadrant of efficient quarterback, but very volatile. And my excuse was, well, listen, he's coming in and out of concussion protocols and, things are moving around him. He's getting his feet set. So that'll come down and he'll be as efficient. No, Tua's been completely healthy and he is maybe who we thought we were, or at least who I didn't think he was. But, are you sold on this is the Tua that we know and love? This is who he really is?
I mean, in an answer, yes, only because it's really not that big of a deal. If you're going to be volatile, you want to be in the quadrant Tua is in. Like it's when you are volatile and you're not efficient, right? This is that kind of gunslinger chaos. So it's basically saying that he's highly volatile, but really on his per play basis, he can have such big swings on how many expected points added he's adding. And that's not surprising because imagine he's throwing the ball for 40 yards. I mean, think about how many expected points added happen on that play versus the next play. Oh, it's a check down for 1 yard. Well, okay. Well, that looks like a lot of volatility. In this case, because he's so efficient, I think that volatility we're measuring is just he can either have a really, 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 big impact on expected points, or he can have a little bit of an impact on expected points. But on average, he's always adding value, right? Versus this other quarterback that's very little adding value, but every once in a while they get a Hail Mary and they kind of the gunslinger. So no, I think Tua is fine there, and I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think for me, you just want to be more efficient than average. That's the key here, because if not, your offense is stalling, you're not sustaining drives, you're not converting on third down, and quite frankly, literally all of those are signals for not covering, not winning. And I think as long as you're on the other side, the volatility aspect doesn't concern me all that much. It's obviously you would prefer him to be slanging dimes every single play, but that's just not the reality.
Sure. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah, there's some interesting Zach Wilson obviously in here. He's getting a little bit better week to week. Did he have a good game last week? I mean, that game kind of went exactly like you thought it would, in my opinion, or from what you shared with me. But is Zach Wilson a quarterback that you're kind of, I can't imagine you're psyched to bet on him, but like, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I was actually a little disappointed. I thought he was going to have a much bigger game. The defenses would really shine, which, it's not surprising that that's what the Jets are known for. But I think he's slowly progressing along, but he had a decent game against a team I thought he should have had a good game against, because that Denver Broncos defense is surprisingly not that great, especially considering where they've been in years past. But I don't think you're psyched, but I think it's all relative, right? I mean, would I rather have a Zach Wilson or a Mac Jones? I don't know, right? So we'll see them, because I don't know what the Patriots are going to do here. I mean, they can't run the ball, they can't throw the ball. and if you look down, very, very small sample size, but Zappy's not much better. But again, that's what, less than 50 passes. So
Yeah.
go ahead and disregard
Way
that for
worse.
now. That's an unfair thing. But, this is a lot of chaos going into that Patriots offense. So, we'll see.
Yeah, I think the other one that jumps off here, CJ Stroud, obviously as a rookie, I think by all means is exceeding expectations. Good, good on him. I mean, he kind of got the short end of the stick, especially during the draft time. I mean, he got probably one of the pretty, I don't know, say maybe most hurtful things I've heard coming out of the draft a long time. It was basically like leaked that this guy's just basically has no brains. He's just dumb. He got the lowest score you could possibly get on the Wonderlic, like, and then it comes out like this dude's slanging. He can read defenses. He's highly efficient. So it's like, okay, well, good on him that like he didn't let that get to him, and we're actually getting to see in real time his true intelligence. But kind of stuck. It's been sticking out to me. Like, who leaked that? Like, if I'm him, I'm thinking my team leaked that because they're like, yo, we gotta get some stuff out into the market so no one wants to touch this guy so we can get him, because it doesn't make sense. Why else would someone leak that he's had the worst Wonderlic in history? Makes zero sense.
Yeah.
Unless you want to buy him low, right? You want to make sure you got him at 2, or you wanted to make sure that he wasn't going to get drafted at 1. So anyways, that has really not a lot, but I've been thinking about that lately. Garoppolo, we're going to talk, or maybe I guess we're not going to talk about it, so I'll talk about it now. Who are the Raiders? I can't figure this team out. They went and they ended up beating, I think, a mediocre Green Bay team. I don't think it's a crazy win, but like I was kind of saying this team's imploding. Not kind of. I've said this team's imploding, and then they go and win. So I'm not sure what to make of that. I'm not really sure what to make of Garoppolo. He's looked good. He's looked bad. There's all this drama. Is he getting Devontae the ball enough? I don't know. Any thoughts there on Garoppolo?
Yeah, I don't know what to think either. I mean, I went into that game thinking this is going to be a handy win for Green Bay, and Garoppolo and the Raiders just kind of did their thing. So yeah, time would tell. I mean, it to me, like, his distribution has been very volatile. 2 weeks ago, Devontae went off, and then this week he barely got the ball at all, but Jacoby Myers did his thing. So I think you're going to get a little more familiarity as the season goes on, but I don't know what to think of Garoppolo, honestly. Now the question would be, do you think they won that? It's not swap, but do you think between the two new teams, is Derek Carr, more for the Saints now, so he got hurt, than Garoppolo is for the Raiders? I don't know, but we'll see.
Yeah, this is like a scenario like everybody kind of won. Like, I'm like, Derek Carr is probably in a better situation. I don't know if Jimmy G's in a better situation. The fact that they wanted to move on, though, I think that's probably a good landing spot for him. So I don't think it's that crazy. One quarterback I did want to get your opinion on, though, because I think you have some strong feelings here, is Dak Prescott. So Dak Prescott's kind of lived in the house that Tua lives in. And Dak isn't there yet, and he was in the quadrant of elite, and now he's moving up steady. He's also moving over and becoming less efficient. What are your thoughts on Dak?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is what I really expected the whole year long. I mean, we started off very strong, firmly placed in the quadrant of elite, like you mentioned. But remember, those are against a Giants team where the defense scored 2 touchdowns early on in that game, and then so it's really easy to be efficient and elite when you're not asked to do much because your defense is literally putting up dozens of points, right? But the moment that your team is down, you have to put the team on your back. We see Dak get a little shaky, and really less efficient than years past. So I firmly expect him to stay on the positive side of the EPA per play. But I expect that volatility to continue to rise. I think this is who Dak Prescott truly is.
Okay. Yeah. So you're kind of selling. If you could sell Dak Prescott, it sounds like you would sell it.
Yeah. Yeah. Personal.
All right.
No hard feelings.
Yeah.
Just personal.
No hard feelings. Desmond Ridder still not definitely he's making some strides. He had his come out game. I got to give him credit where credit is due. He won that game. I mean, he led to had a game-winning drive, and they kicked it and they won. And I mean, it was good to see, especially holding futures tickets for that team. It was good to see Desmond Ridder be a quarterback and actually lead that team via passing game, because up until that point, they really were kind of avoiding using him, in my opinion. And so it'll be interesting to see how they come out in week 6, but also in the coming weeks. Like, do we see the kind of similar progression from Ridder? And then I think, in my opinion, if we see that, so too will we see the progression for Atlanta as a team overall. Any last thoughts there?
No, I think that's spot on. I could have said it better myself.
All right, we are going to leave the quarterback landscape, and we're going to recap week 5. It was an interesting week. We had a really good week in college. We ended up going 9-0, which is crazy. NFL not as good. We basically went 2-2, losing the VIG. That Ravens game was a little bit of a heartbreaker because there were more than one opportunity to end up covering. Not only were we covering 10-0, then 10-3, then they have the safety, then the field goal. We're losing 2, but then they get the fumble in the red zone, thinking no problem. As long as Lamar doesn't turn the ball over here, we'll be fine. We'll at minimum kick a field goal. We'll win by 5. We'll go home happy. That didn't happen. They ended up losing that game, so that was interesting. But then I want to get your thoughts here on the Lions and the Dolphins here, because those were pretty big spreads, and we were able to catch the Dolphins at 9.5, which made it the 4% EV in order for us to play. But other than like maybe a last second backdoor sweat, I mean, both these games, especially the Lions game, was basically over the minute it started.
Yeah, and I actually didn't get a chance to catch the Lions game. I did watch the Dolphins, and yeah, I was definitely a little concerned about that backdoor late game heroics. But yeah, I mean, this team looks like a team that was really comfortably in control. And I kind of box scored the Lions game. And yeah, you can say what you want about the Panthers, but boy, oh boy, you can't deny what that offense looks like out in Detroit. I mean, it looks pretty damn good.
Yeah, and that's without Gibbs and without Amon-Ra St. Brown. So I mean, that offense can only get better, in my opinion. So really interesting. I don't know that there's a whole lot to take away from the model in week 5 that brings the record of 14-8. The 7 already incorporated the Commanders win. We'll talk a little bit, I guess, worth that. We were able to get that at 5.5. That brought it to the 4% EV. We needed to bet it. That was just a kind of a weird game. Like that was the Chicago's coming out party. I called it on here. I was not surprised by that whatsoever. We saw this. I don't know if it's exactly 1 year ago, but we saw this exact thing. Chicago, bad. And then all of a sudden, like, I don't know if it's like a good week of practice or whatever, they can figure out a good offensive plan. And then Justin Fields looked really good. So I'm not really surprised to see it. And I'm also not really surprised to see it against a really median to low, worse than average team in the Commanders. I mean, what is your takeaway there?
Yeah, I mean, this is the classic Chicago thing. When you need us, we're not there for you, but you turn the back on us to go against us, all of a sudden we're all reliable. Yeah, I mean, you saw Fields kind of put it together against that Denver game the week prior, and you felt a little good going into that. You felt bad because you blew a big lead, but offensively, you felt pretty decent, and he definitely built on that. And the one thing I would say is they ran the damn ball with Fields. Don't make Fields a pocket quarterback. That's not his game. He is an athlete. Let him do what athletes do. He just seemed way more comfortable in every aspect. So I think that was a great showing. It sucked for us. It sucked for us on the over-under, the futures total. It sucked for us on the week, but as a Bears fan, it felt good to get one.
Yeah, I mean, they were going to get a win. They were going to get a win at some point. I don't think they were going to go completely undefeated or defeated, I guess.
Yeah. Now, I do have 2 quick questions. One, how do you feel about, speaking of the futures, I know we talked about a little bit, but that Lions blowout of Carolina, as a Bears fan, we have Panthers #1 pick, so I feel very, very good. But does that say more about how good Detroit is or more about how bad Carolina is, or can you not really take anything away?
No, I think both. I think both.
Okay.
It's how good the Lions are and how bad Carolina is. And I think the really, really good teams beat the shit out of really bad teams. And so I think exactly if your thesis is that the Lions are good offense and good defense, and that's, I went live right before, and that was really my big thing I wanted to see from the Lions. Do the Lions strangle these really anemic offenses? Because if you're a good defense, you need to be shutting down the really, really poor offenses in the NFL. That's what we saw. To me, that's a really good data point that the Lions defense is actually much improved to last year, because last year they would have won that game, but it would have been a shootout. It would have been no reason. It would have been a shootout. They would have won by 7 points. And I think that offense is just getting going, quite frankly. So I'm not surprised. It'll be interesting to see here what happens in week 6 when that offense and bad defense goes and plays Miami, which is a really good offense. Do you see the same effect again, or was there synergy there for the Lions because of the defense and the good offense? That'll be really interesting. Did you end up touching this Jets game?
Yeah, I was going to ask about the check mark there because this is the one I felt the best about. Well, actually, I felt the best about the Ravens, but this is the one I felt the second best about when we first posted this card, and it's more of a testament how bad Denver is. But yeah, I got the Jets, and I actually live bet them again, money line on top of that. But yeah,
Dang, let's go. Yeah, I think we didn't get it counted because it wasn't 4%. So I don't. Were you able to get a 3?
oh
I think
yeah,
that's what.
no, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, so this week was weird. So I know that the X's and the checks, like if you're new here, so we bet anything with 4%. We put here for the figure where the opening was only because that's where we regress to the market. So we regress to the opening line, but the lines will move off that number. So for instance, Commanders, we were able to get a 5.5 at -110. That made it 4%. Dolphins, we were able to get a 9.5. That made it 4%. The Jets, I don't think ever made it to if they would have been to +3, it would have for sure been an EV bet at 4% or greater, but I don't think it ended up ever getting there, unfortunately. So good win for you. Nice to always cash those tickets. All right, heading in to week 6, what does the model have in store? This one is very, very interesting. We got some injuries to talk about. We got some news to talk about. So we'll explain this card a little bit. You'll see 2 outputs for the Giants, 2 outputs for the Jags, and 2 outputs for the Browns. This is because there are questionable quarterbacks in all of these games. So Jags, Anthony Richardson. The Jags game is because the Colts quarterback, Anthony Richardson, is questionable. It's either him or Gardner Minshew. So we use the information we have for both those quarterbacks. As you see, no difference. Giants, it's either going to be Tyrod Taylor or what's his name? I forget his name, Daniel Jones. And as you see, no difference. But there is a little bit of nuance here for the Browns, and Steve alluded to it early. But before I get into that, because it's a little bit hairy, I want to get your initial reactions on this, Steve. What do you like about the card? So officially, we'll talk about the Browns, but leaving them out right now, it likes the Broncos 10.5 tomorrow night, Thursday Night Football. Dolphins -13.5 against Carolina, and the Rams minus. I think we were able to get. I think 6. I think we got 6.
Yeah.
Against the Arizona Cardinals. Give me your initial thoughts on those 3.
Yeah, so love the Rams over Cardinals. I know the Cardinals had a kind of a spirited game against Cincinnati for kind of the wheels kind of fell off. I expect more of the same. That Rams offense is just too good. Love the Dolphins. You know, we always talk about double-digit spreads. You know, it makes me a little wary, but Carolina is just a bad team and Miami's not. And so 13.5 again is the number there. 14
Yes.
and above, this is a completely different conversation, right?
100%.
13.5 is the number. The one that scares the shit out of me is Denver. Now, on one hand, you know, I was actually watching, you know, RG3 had a podcast and he was talking about how Sean Payton treats Russell Wilson, how Jay Gruden treated him when he got to Washington, meaning that he's throwing him under the bus. You know, he's really not taking any sort of accountability as a head coach, and he's making this sort of spectacle about Russ and Russ's poor play when really, you know, the defense is a big question mark. Russ can definitely be playing better, no doubt about it. He deserves some of the blame, but that defense, I mean, look at the defensive EPA per play. They are dead last. I mean, this is a team just a couple of years ago we were talking about because we one of the best defenses and you know, up there league defenses in history. This is not the case anymore. And so when you talk about why is Denver losing, why is Denver giving up 70 points, that's not Russ's fault. That has everything to do with the defense. But you're seeing these sort of antics. I really didn't think much about it at first, but you remember that game, the Denver-Miami game, Russ played until the end.
Russ in. Yeah, he left him in.
Yeah. That to me, that was weird in the moment, but I was like, okay. But looking back since that moment, you know, you've had these sort of blow-ups on the sidelines and Sean Payton shooting Russ out. He is firmly making Russ the scapegoat. And I don't know if it's because he wants a new quarterback or he just doesn't want to have the blame on him. But I don't like that chemistry. I don't like that locker room right now. And that scares me on top of Denver's just a bad team. Now, you made a really good point off air about some of the conditions that could go into this game that you want to talk about, because that could favor the under, which means it could favor the score being tighter. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, so this is an interesting weather weekend. We got, at least from I can tell, there are 3 games where weather is going to be a factor, and specifically 2 where wind will be a factor. And wind. So the rule of thumb analytics is basically 20. 20 is where that kind of flip gets switched, where unders start to be a real thing. You've I'm sure heard anecdotal people talk, but in the analytics community, 20 is kind of that number. We don't really dabble in over unders yet, so we don't claim to be experts here. But from my research and speaking to people that are much smarter than me and much informed in that world, is 20. So we have gusts up to 17 miles an hour in that game in Kansas City tomorrow. So that'll be interesting. And then the other one is Cleveland, gusts up to 15 miles an hour. And then rain in that Cleveland game. And then Buffalo, definitely rain is going to happen in that game. So those are ones to watch out for. Obviously, two of these are pertinent to us. And to your point, for this Thursday night matchup with the Broncos, it does feel gross. This number hasn't moved. Obviously, it's an accelerated market because we're more mature than we normally would be with it being a Thursday night game. I don't know that that's concerning or not concerning. I guess I'll take it as somewhat of a data point that it's not moving against us. If it was such a slam dunk for the 10.5 for Kansas City, that market would have moved. Now, I have to say I'm a little bit surprised that we haven't at least moved off the 10 in a hook. I would have imagined if there was a little bit of value on the Broncos, we would have at least got down to 10. I don't know. I like, to your point, I hear everything you're saying, but tell me this isn't as dysfunctional as it was last year. I mean, the coach got fired. So, I mean, it can only be as dysfunctional as it was last year. And this is a Broncos team that covered both times against Kansas City. And it wasn't pretty. That wasn't a good team last year either. And quite frankly, they were bad against very different situation, though. They were good on defense, but bad offense. This year, they're bad against the defense and average on offense. So I'm with you. It's hard for me to understand exactly how this goes. But, you know, if we kind of zoom out here, we're talking about an average offense going against Kansas City. This is a game we saw last week. We saw Kansas City versus the Minnesota Vikings, and that game ended at 7, right? So yes, Minnesota's defense isn't as bad, but we talked about this at the beginning of the show. Kansas City isn't winning through their offense. They're winning through their defense. Now, you could argue get right game, all this, all that. I don't know that I kind of fully buy into it. The other question mark too is Kelce. Is Kelce going to be fully healthy? I haven't heard necessarily if he's going to be out. I haven't heard it go that far, but obviously he was in pain, and you know, ankles going into the next week isn't necessarily always pan out, even though they played in that weekend. So I don't know if it's the most gross thing in the world. We have, you know, our group chat, and I think I stand by the statement that I said. It feels gross, but of course, value is going to be found in places you don't want to look, right? Of course, it's not fun to peek behind the Broncos curtain and say, oh yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take this horrible team that's imploding. And you know, they have all these issues, but that in reality is a good place to look, right? Because that means, you know, not a lot of other people are willing to even look there. And right, that's why you use a model to quantify those things. Now, obviously the model doesn't know that there's maybe some drama between Russ and all this stuff. But at the same time, you know, it's picking up what they're putting down this season and kind of some of who they were last season. And so I'm okay with it. I'm with you. The Dolphins, this move to 14, which was a really big move for us, and then is now at Pinnacle is still at 14, but at Circa now back at 13.5. So a little bit of a war there, in my opinion, between the sharp community on is basically, and I'm not surprised. I don't think this will get to 14.5. It's basically, if you can get a 14.5, go ahead, take the Panthers. If you can get a 13.5, go ahead and take Miami and pray that it's a 2-possession game. I think really that's what's going on here. And then I'm with you with the Rams. I like this bet. This is now moved officially to 7 at Circa, which you really like to see. It hasn't moved at Pinnacle, but at Circa, this is now at 7. Obviously, that being such a crucial key number, I think brings a lot of validity to our bet. Okay, let's talk about the Rams. And you know, just for the record, the Rams will be a no bet. We will not be betting this game. It is not an official model pick. Oh, I'm sorry. What did I say?
Rams.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Browns will be a no pick. This will not be official model pick. Rams will be. So officially, we will be betting Broncos, Dolphins, Rams. Browns will not be a pick, just to correct that mistake. So logic here is we're having a tough time modeling out Purdy. We don't know who Purdy is, and we basically have to make two very unfair assumptions. In one way, we either say Brock Purdy is through his, I think he's got 9 starts total. Through his 9 starts is literally the best quarterback that's ever played. And that very well could be true. Or we say he's still a rookie. He still has less than the criteria of starts, and he should be treated like a rookie. Quite frankly, we've talked about it. Like, there isn't a right answer, but unfortunately, we know that no matter which pathway we go down, we're just, there's too much noise in the signal. We're basically either downplaying Purdy too much, or we're probably giving Purdy too much credit. Now, you could really argue, well, why is it too much credit to just use the data you have for Purdy? You wouldn't be wrong there, but do we think Purdy is literally better than Tom Brady? Because through his starts, that's what the model thinks. It literally puts a higher number on Purdy than Tom Brady. So, I mean, to just, put it all the way out there. Is that true? Do we believe that? Hard for me to believe that. Hard for me to believe that that's actually accurate. And there's nothing to do. There's nothing you can do about this for the analytical approaches we bet. So the best thing we can do is just not bet it, because we don't necessarily believe we have an edge. And when we start to look at these different scenarios, you see very different things. If you treat Purdy and you use all of his data, it likes them to smash the Browns, especially if DTR plays. It likes them by 12 points. If it's Watson, it likes them by 4. It puts no value one way or the other. If you treat them like a rookie, you get these outputs. So I to me, there's no point here. Steve, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely hear you there. It's one of those things where, excuse me, sorry. It's one of those things where, we went through this last year about, how much weight do you account for the quarterback and do you include them? I think we learned a lesson pretty early that you have to include them, but you don't want to put too much weight on it, meaning that people who only have 1 or 2 starts and they're good starts, all of a sudden they are the next coming of Tom Brady, whatever quarterback, picture legendary quarterback. So I agree with everything you just said. And I think the smart thing to do was say, hey, listen, we don't really know what to do because we're uncertain. We don't want to put your money at risk of something that we don't really believe in. So it's a no bet while we figure this out. With that being said, I am not saying he's better than Tom Brady, but I'm just saying if I were a computer, I understand why the model thinks so, right? Because on paper, what has he done except be incredibly efficient?
No, he's literally only covered. He's only won by huge margins. I mean, the dude looks so good. And like exactly right. And to your point, like when you say like we got to figure out what to do, in my opinion, there's only one thing to do, and it's just get more data. And while you're accumulating that data, you just kind of make sure you're really, really honest about, because like if the Browns win by 20, like, well, what will we think? Well, then, okay, it makes a lot of validity to, Purdy in this offense, like they're not supermen, like they still are susceptible. But if they go and win by 20, like San Francisco wins by 20, it's still going to think, no, Brock Purdy is literally one of the best quarterbacks ever. So it's kind of an analytical, like, I don't want to say nightmare, but it's very much an analytical anomaly that him with the amount of starts he has is playing like he is. We've never seen that before in a sample, because he's done it over a long enough sample that he technically is not a rookie, but he is so inflated in those starts that it insanely inflates his number. So so official model plays will be Rams -6, Dolphins -13.5, Broncos 10.5. I'm pretty happy about it. Any other games you're betting, Steve, that aren't on this card, or maybe are?
Oh, yeah, no, I really. So we always talk about bankroll management and being smart here. I'm actually double dipping on the Rams. I got it at 6. I got it at 6.5.
Okay.
And so yeah, right. No, so that's the one I'm really, really keen in on, and I really haven't put much effort and money elsewhere. You?
Yeah, I love this. Well, I bet the Vikings at 2.5. This officially crossed the threshold from 3 to 2.5. puts this way, way, way greater than 4%, especially at that number. Now, I know exactly why that's happening. That is happening because the Jefferson IR news, he's officially been placed on IR. That's going to move this number down. But I think 2.5 is just too much. Being able to win this game by 3 is very doable. I've also taken a look at some of the targets. Yes, Jefferson has a very, let's say the lion's share of the targets, but he hasn't actually done that in every game. He's in a couple of the games this season, he was, the second actual most targeted wide receiver. So I don't think that they have to have him in order to win this game or to win by 3. And I think there's just too much value at the 2.5. The other thing I was waiting for, the signal I wanted to see, was it moved to 2.5. And we're still pretty early in the week here on Wednesday, but this happened all on Monday, Tuesday. Would we see that get eaten up at one of the market makers? And that's exactly what we saw. We saw this now get eaten up from 2.5 back to 3 at Circa. To me, that is enough confidence in my number here, or our number, that the model makes this, that there's a lot of value there. And I don't know. I bet you that this closes at 3, doesn't close at 2.5. I think the market will eat up those 3s. There's just too much value for this Vikings team at that number. And quite frankly, this isn't a team, I've had nothing great to say about them all season or last season. But, we talked about this with the college show. At some point, you're buying at the lowest point you can buy. And I think we're getting pretty close to the Vikings, in my opinion. And that 2.5 is the key number. So I really like that. I did scale my bet down. So instead of double dipped, I half dipped. So I took it for a half a unit for the Vikings at 2.5. But I do like that, especially getting a 2.5 minus 110. I think it's a good bet, win or lose. Nothing really else jumps out at me. I have to say I'm quite intrigued by getting a 15 in the Giants game. I don't care who starts. I think it's just too many.
Sure.
Now, Buffalo is one of those teams that can blow teams out, but 15 just seems like a lot. You can see the key number there, 14. And if you can, you're not that much from going right to get a 13.5, or, you put this number at 13.5, would obviously spike that expected value. Other than that, nothing really jumps out at me.
Yeah. There's some ugly games. I mean, I hear you, and I'm definitely biased. The Vikings Bears games, that just seems ugly to me. Patriots Raiders, that seems ugly to me. Saints Texans,
ugly game. Ugly game. What will be the outcome of an ugly game? Like, what's the most probable outcome? Yeah. And I'm not saying the Vikings win, but it'll be, what will the margin of an ugly game more than likely be? 3, right? Is that
right
the field goal?
3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why I think there's so much value. I'm with you. Can I see the Bears winning by 3? Yeah, I can. But I think exactly that. It's a field goal game.
Yeah.
All right. I guess we could do a quick recap of the futures. We didn't have all the teams play. The Browns did not play. They were on bye. Chicago gets their first win. Carolina stays undefeated. Are you getting any rumblings from last year? We were on Carolina under last year. Fired their coach. Yeah. We're thinking we're riding high, and then out of nowhere they just went and won a bunch of games for no reason.
Yeah, well, I will say, so this is, I think the other thing that maybe doesn't really concern me but concerns me, right, is there's no incentive for Carolina to tank because we're getting their pick. The Chicago's getting their pick. True. Right. And so, but on the other side, I just don't think Carolina can win 6 games. I mean, what we've seen, now, listen, I expect Bryce Young to get better, right? I don't think they're going to be this bad all year long, but he's going to be a rookie. He's going to play like a rookie, and this team is just not great. So I feel really comfortable about that. I'm feeling still pretty good about the Falcons. A little bit of a bump there in the road, but we'll see. I think my question I want to ask you is, again, I want to ask you because I'm biased, right? As a Bears fan, obviously I want to see them crash and burn. But legitimately speaking, is there a concern in Green Bay? They've had some really close games through and through, but are they a mediocre team kind of fading back into a little bit of less than mediocre?
I mean, it's a fair point and a fair question. I think, a lot of injuries, though, with that team, right? I mean, they're one of their best offensive players, didn't play 2 weeks in a row. They're banged up on offensive line. They've had a couple people on IR. Their tackles on IR. I mean, when we're at 7.5, what are we really saying? We're saying it's a median team.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've seen anything from the Packers be like, it's not a median team. And oh yeah, by the way, a healthy Packers, I think it's fair. To your point about the Falcons, though, I think we got a bump in the road. I would say a nice little bump in our direction. That drive by Ritter was a double whammy for us, because them winning that game gets us a W for the Falcons, but also gives us another loss for the Texans. And that 6.5 feels a little low, feels a little light. I can't lie.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I mean, Stroud, he's looking good, but they actually have to win some games, 2 more than we would have projected through this point in the season. But very interesting. And then we'll come back to the Raiders. Like I sold this team up the creek last week, but I'm not buying them back. I just don't. I'm just so confused. I don't understand this team. And then the Vikings. Look, I guess I'm hoping that the Vikings win this week and cover at least by 3. And that'll be the last time I'm going to root for them, unless the model tells me otherwise. But I think like, to be fair, we've seen so much negative variance for the Vikings. Like, this is to me the buy low spot. I'm not surprised the model likes this. I'm not surprised that the market is initially overreacting, and then they're buying back the overreaction at 2.5 to 3. I think that 2.5 is a big, nice little bargain. So yeah, I've learned my lesson. Pretty much no point to judge these, because you have no idea what's happening. You make good bets, you quantify your edges, and you let the season play out, because on average, this is where the best money was put and should be. And you have to kind of live and die by that, because the week to week drama of this, it'll kill you.
Yeah, that's for sure.
think. Yeah, we've unfortunately we've lived that last year. All right, Steve, any other bets you're making this week, or anything else you wanted to hit on?
No, I mean, I think we've covered it from my standpoint. Really looking forward to the slates, both college and NFL. Really gonna double down, watch some Arizona football, because I never have a reason, because I live in Arizona. I never have a reason to watch a Cardinals game, because I'm not a Cardinals fan, but it feels so good to be able to watch them and root against them.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and watch them lose. Yeah, that'd be nice. Yeah, I'm excited here. We got a 3 slate weekend. I like these slate weekends. I have to say, I hate when the model has the Thursday night game, because it just messes up my week. Like, I really like watching the Thursday night game with no skin in the game, because I can just go to sleep. I don't care what happens. If somebody's getting screwed over, there's a bad beat, not my problem, somebody else's problem. So I don't want to say I'm mad, but like, I prefer not to bet on the Thursday night games. But hey, the model has other plans, so we'll see it. We'll see how it ends up going. Other than that, I'm curious to see how the Vikings can do, because I think there's some good value there. But I'm with you. I think the Rams, I like that bet. I do like that bet, especially at that number 6. I think it's a really good spot for them to win by a touchdown and kind of dominate that game. All right. Well, that is it for the Bully the Board Week 5 NFL recap and model predictions. Please, if you are not already a subscriber, please go ahead, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Let us know in the comments, who are you betting this week? Who do you got? Do you like the model? You've been riding with the model, because the model's been making money, Steve. I don't know about if but the model's been making money. So I hope people are tailing the model, but let us know. Are you fading? Are you tailing? Are you impressed by the model? Are you unimpressed? Do you think the model's got its number, and this week is the week it all changes? We would love to see it all in the comments. So without further ado, everybody, thank you so much for hanging out with us. We are Seth and Steve. Kevin will be with us next week, and we'll see you all next week. Let's bully the board. Take care.